Hey guys, welcome back to Politics Gaming. Today we'll be doing a situation that is kind of unusual. We're going to be doing the best Republican versus the worst Democrats. So I know you guys will disagree, but I chose Mike Garcia and Daniel Cameron as the ticket, and AOC and Rashida Tlaib. I think Mike Garcia and Daniel Cameron are the best Republicans indeed, because Mike Garcia, he was able to win in a district that is went for Biden, like by a safe margin, and he is Trumpian, so I think he would definitely do appeal to a lot of Trump voters. He will be able to keep that Trump base intact, and plus with him being Hispanic, it will kind of help debunk the narrative that the Republican Party is the racist party or it's the party of old white men. And Daniel Cameron being on the as the running mate, I think that would be a smart move for Mike Garcia, because as with Daniel Cameron being African American, well, I don't mean if I don't mean to be racist here, but would definitely help with the African American vote, especially they do tend to vote overwhelmingly Democratic, like exit polls in 2020 showed African American voters backed Biden overwhelmingly, 87-12. So, um, Daniel Cameron would definitely do much better, would help Mike Garcia with the African American vote. And why I say AOC and Rashida Tlaib are the worst Democrats is both of them brand themselves as democratic socialists. Whether they actually advocate for socialism or not is not sure, is because the media keeps beating that narrative into our heads. But regardless of what the media says, Americans still don't like democratic socialists. So I think definitely Rashida Tlaib and AOC will bring plunge the Democratic Party. So starting off with Mike Garcia's safe states, it would be your traditional Republican safe states. Oops, my bad. It would be your traditional Republican safe states. Oops, not Texas. Well, traditionally Texas is a safe state, but in this case it would be pretty different. And Utah. So this would be your traditional safe states, but Mark Garcia, with running against the Democratic Socialists, he will win Texas by safe, Iowa and Ohio by safe, Maine's for second district by safe margin. And AOC will not come close. With I think her only safe states are being California, New York, Vermont, Massachusetts, and Maryland, and the District of Columbia, and Hawaii. So she only has 113. So one of the few times in history that we see the Republican Party having more safe states than the Democratic Party, and not only more safe states, but more safe electoral votes. So Mike Garcia's likely states. So it would be your traditional Republican likely states, although this time I would definitely would contend that Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, Arizona would all be likely. Would be the easiest to say, because AOC's socialist label will definitely scare away moderates who will either stay home or even vote for Mike Garcia himself. So Arizona and Georgia, both of them are super moderate states, and if they're gonna have to choose between the lesser of the two evils, they'll think Mike Garcia is the less, and the less, what would I call it? Less will be the more moderate one compared to AOC. And plus, Mike Garcia is a bit more moderate when it comes to his tone, but I think with him being Hispanic, I think he'll do significantly better in Arizona and Florida. Where in Florida, that socialism label is gonna scare, and I don't think it's gonna be like 15 points for Garcia, but I definitely do think it's going to be double digits. And in North Carolina, I see a 9 to 10 point victory for Mike Garcia, so about Bush margins. In Georgia, I see a 7 to 8% victory for Mike Garcia. But I think also I would say Virginia would be likely state. I know this has been trending blue for a very long time, since like 2008, but if you really look at the moderate voters up in the northern Virginia suburbs, which is super crucial, those voters aren't going to vote for AOC. They're very establishmentarian voters. They're not going to vote for some socialist. I'm not sure if they will either. They may vote for Garcia himself, or they're going to stay home in droves. And remember, if you have a lot of your electorate staying home, that really hurts your party. So I think Garcia would be able to do better in Virginia, and plus with Daniel Cameron being on the ticket, I think he'll be able to get some African American voters onto his side. That's why I'm putting Virginia and Wisconsin. That's a likely margin. Would not be surprised if Mike Garcia takes it by 6 to 7. Pennsylvania for a very similar reason. The Philadelphia suburbs are going to shift hard to the right against AOC. And Mike Garcia, with his working class, with his Trumpian appeal, will keep up that working class growth in Pennsylvania. And I do see Michigan being likely, so the entire Rust Belt being likely states for Mike Garcia and Daniel Cameron, and plus with a significant African American population in Detroit and Philadelphia and Milwaukee and Madison. I think he would be able to get more of those voters onto the Republican Party's side. And I do see New Hampshire also being a likely state. So with that, Mike Garcia is already at 323 electoral votes. Oh, and I also forgot Nevada would be a likely margin due to Mike Garcia doing much, much better in Clark County and winning Hispanics over. So for AOC's likely states, I think it would be Washington because it's a very progressive heavy state, and Rhode Island. A state that, and then with her closely tying herself to Bernie, I think she would do well in Rhode Island. And Illinois will be a likely margin in favor of AOC. So Mike Garcia's lean states. I would say Minnesota would be lean in favor of Mike Garcia. And Colorado, I think this would be one of Mike Garcia's closest lean state. Although I do see him make significant inroads with Hispanics, and I think he could pull off a Cory Gardner performance. Maybe doing even better than Gardner himself. And I think New Mexico will be lean, although I think it could be likely due to AOC's stances on fracking, and she wants to ban fracking completely. So that will really hurt New Mexico's biggest industry. So voters are going to run away from AOC, but due to it still has a Democratic presence in there. So that's why I'm putting it in the lean margin. And my final lean state would be New Jersey. Oops, that won't be likely. New Jersey. I think that would be probably Mike Garcia's closest lean state. I say this because New Jersey is pretty liberal when it comes to politics, but someone like AOC is going to turn off a lot of moderates who will stay home. And New Jersey does have a very significant Cuban population. I think it's second in the country behind Florida. And she's going to turn off a lot of those voters who will flock to Garcia. Moderates are going to stay home, which will cost her. And I think Mike Garcia will really campaign here due to the fact that New Jersey is a very suburban state, kind of relatively working class in some areas, but also relatively wealthy in a lot of areas too. So Mike Garcia can make significant inroads in that. So AOC's lean states. I definitely think Connecticut would be a lean state, and Maine's first district, that would be lean, and Oregon would be tilt. I would say Connecticut would be lean. I think it'll be super, super close. I think it'll be between 1 to 3% in favor of AOC because Connecticut, it may go much more Republican, but I think the urban areas in Connecticut will save her from defeat. And I think that's all I see. Maine's first district, that'll go very hard to the right. And with Delaware being a tilt state for the Democratic Party. And for the Republican Party, there are no tilt states except Maine at large. I do see that being a likely margin. And Nebraska second, that being a likely margin. So that's my prediction. Mike Garcia will easily take the election in a landslide, 371 to AOC and Rashida Tlaib's 167. So please comment down below if you disagree with me on my rankings of certain states. Remember, I'm trying to do this in a very unbiased way. If I am being biased, I admit that I could be, but I'm still young. We all have room to grow. No one's perfect, and be respectful in the comments. If you disagree, just say you respectfully disagree, and Subscribe to Politics Saving. More content is to come, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye.